I thought, green energy, wonderful. We're going to help the environment. This is going to be good for everybody. It's going to be a win-win situation. But when you're kept awake one night, okay. You're kept awake 2 nights, okay. But then it's 1 week, and then it's 2 weeks, and then it's 3 weeks, and then it goes into months, and then it's a year. That tells its toll. I was told we will get used to the noise. It is not a problem. It is not an issue. The only issue is NIMBYism. You know, not in my backyard. And I thought, well, I don't have a problem. Put them in my backyard. Put them in my 2 fields. We have 13 acres. No problem.
But pretty soon, Norma Schmidt, who is a retired nurse, recognized that she did have problems.
Nausea, which was very infrequent at first. Ear pressure and head pressure. Much later, dizziness and vertigo. Migraines, although I'd had migraines previously, they were very infrequent, 1 to 2 a year. They became much more frequent and much more severe.
Other people have been showing up in doctors' offices too, and their symptoms have been the same as Norma's.
As a physician, once people start complaining of things, you start looking at what might be causing this. And part of our investigation is we said, well, we'll hold a meeting both north and south and see who comes and what their stories are. Had one of the experts from the Ontario Agency for Health Promotion Protection who came up. He's the in charge of their environmental division, and he said he'd never seen anything like it either. That so many people upset by these things, and very consistent symptoms.
And the variation in noises that come from the turbines is testing the tolerance of the people who live near them.
I'm going to play 3 different sounds. They're all at 80 hertz.
Dr. Michael Nissenbaum.
They're all going to be at the same decibel level. Okay. Which one would you rather spend time with?
Wind turbines emit different sound patterns depending on which way and how hard the wind is blowing. The different characteristics bother people in different ways.
The real question is, do wind turbines cause noise? Yes. Do they cause sleep deprivation? Yes. Is sleep deprivation a problem? Well, of course it is. Well, therefore, we have a completely plausible chain of causation here.
Dr. Michael Nissenbaum is a radiologist and public health advocate. He did a survey of how turbines affect the health of people living near the Mars Hill wind farm in Maine. He asked them if their quality of life had changed since the 28 turbines went up.
And we got results that showed that there was an unequivocal deterioration in people's mental health, a deterioration in their sleep quality, and an increase in their daytime sleepiness the closer they lived to wind turbines.
Nissenbaum's survey showed that the people who lived closest to the Mars Hill wind farm reported the most ill effects from the turbines, and those effects decreased in homes further away. But even at a distance of 3 kilometers, definite negative effects were still reported.
So strictly speaking, we don't really know what the safe distances are yet.
Right now in Ontario, turbines are required to be 550 meters away from the nearest house. That is the standard for a lot of regions around the world.
From my understanding of the literature and how people behave near these things, 550 meters, I think I described it as insane, because you know there are going to be people being disturbed by having a wind turbine 550 meters from their house. If you go up to 2 kilometers, which some people suggest, then that will drop the incidence of issues with these things a lot. But you'll still have some people still sensitive at 2 kilometers.
And what they are sensitive to isn't just volume, it's also the rhythm of the noise.
So one is a pure tone, and the others are amplitude modulated at 1s per second and 3 per second. The 1s per second is about what you get from wind turbines. At least my subjective feeling about it is that the 1s per second is even more annoying than the 3 times per second. It's the basics of the most rudimentary medical education that sleep is a vital component of maintaining health. If you lose sleep over a protracted period of time, it will affect essentially every body system. It'll affect your mental health, it'll affect your physical health, including, in the case of cardiovascular disease and diabetes and so on, early mortality. This is settled science, this is not speculative. And all of this can derive from chronic sleep disturbance.
Dr. Nissenbaum says the symptoms he found in his study group are the same as other doctors have found in other places around the world. The complaints from people who live close to wind farms are remarkably consistent. Another common thread in all these locations is that no one had done any substantive health studies before placing turbines next to houses.
I think we got into a situation where no one said, stop, let's wait a minute. These things are very large machines. They're really big industrial complexes. And maybe we should look at them with the same scrutiny we look at factories being set up or airports or new highways cutting through areas, that we should look at the local impacts and design appropriately before we just license these things up for construction.
Wind turbines make noise. Whether that noise is within acceptable levels is up for debate until more sophisticated measuring systems are used. But what about the sound waves you can't hear?
They get tinnitus, which is a ringing in their ears. They get stuffed up ears. And they get this vertigo, which is a sensation of either dizziness or unsteadiness.
When machines as big as these are put up in a quiet setting, the landscape changes, and so do the sounds flowing on the winds. And some of those sounds can be complex. A new study has determined that wind turbines emit subsonic sound waves called infrasound that can make certain sensitive people incredibly ill.
So you have this conflict where people are assuming the ear is insensitive, and it's not.
Dr. Alex Salt is a professor at Washington University Medical School in St. Louis. He specializes in the physiology of inner ear fluids.
Lots of things create low levels of infrasound. If you're driving your car with the window just cracked open slightly, you can get that woof, woof, woof noise in the car. Sometimes in buildings, you can get bothered by the air duct noise if there's a fault in the air conditioning system. So if the pressure in that building is oscillating up and down slowly, people start complaining of dizziness and of all the symptoms that people are reporting.
Infrasound is below the threshold of most people's hearing, but it still causes cells in the ear to react, and in some cases, that can be very distressing. Dr. Salt says that infrasound needs to be taken seriously by the people who put up turbines.
So ignoring that sound is a bit like visible light, saying, okay, we'll just look at visible light, so go and lay on a beach all day. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to, you won't get sunburnt. Because if you ignore the part you can't see, you're going to come to the wrong conclusion.
The current generations of wind turbines are very large. A 1.5 megawatt machine is taller than a 35-story building.
The big thing that generates infrasound is different wind speeds going into different parts of the rotor. So that what's called turbulent inflow into the rotor makes them generate a lot of infrasound. It's going to disturb their sleep. So if it wakes them up and they can't get back to sleep again, that has serious long-term effects on people's health. They get tinnitus, which is a ringing in their ears. They get fullness, which is sensation of pressure, stuffed up ears. And they get this vertigo, which is sensation of either dizziness or unsteadiness, more like. And all of those things come from, can potentially come from changes in the ear caused by the low-frequency sound.
Taking accurate infrasound measurements is very difficult considering all of the other sounds that exist in the environment. As a result, Salt did his work in a lab using guinea pigs whose ear canals resemble humans. Salt believes more research is needed into the effects of infrasound.
So you have engineers making judgments about health effects and saying there's no health effects. And these people have engineering background and have no concept at all of what the real health effects are. I mean, they haven't come to the scientists who understand the problem better.
Denmark used to be the world model for making wind power work. Now, suddenly, there are over 170 anti-wind groups across the country. Big turbines going up fast near people's houses. In Denmark, the minimum distance between a house and a turbine is equal to 4 times the height of the machine. Some people say that's still not far enough, but the turbine manufacturers claim that the newer, bigger machines will be quieter than the older ones.
They produce just more noise.
Dr. Henrik Møller is a professor at Aalborg University specializing in acoustics and electrical engineering.
The noise emitted by the turbine is nearly proportional to the electric power that it can produce.
His work has cast doubt on industry claims that larger turbines never exceed legal sound limits. At issue is how they measure the turbine's sound.
The wind comes from there, and it's usually measured downwind from the turbine in a distance like this. You have to make sure that when you measure here, you measure all the noise that is emitted from the turbine. If the turbine emits more sound in that direction, perpendicular to the rotor plane, then you won't measure it here. The noise source is up in the air.
But larger turbines don't just make more noise, they also make a different kind of noise.
You get more low frequencies from wind turbines that are larger. If you go inside, closed door and windows, there will not be a lot of high frequency noise inside. But the low frequency noise still propagates through windows, through the roof and building structures. A lorry standing next to your house is one of the most common things that people compare it to. It may also sound like an old fridge which you don't like in your kitchen, and therefore you close the door to the kitchen. But if it's a wind turbine, it goes in everywhere, so you can't just close the door. It still is.
Wind turbines are causing noise. Noise is causing people to get annoyed and maybe getting sleep disturbances. And it is known that both annoyance, chronic annoyance, and sleep disturbances can affect the stress hormone levels in a negative way. And if you got stress hormone disturbances over a lot of years, it increases the risk of developing different diseases. For instance, diabetes, hypertension, maybe ischemic heart disease, and maybe even depression.
If we were given a medication to a person and they were coming with all of these symptoms, the regulators would be saying, stop giving people these medications. In a flash, doctors would be saying, stop taking that medication, it's making you too ill.